You're kind of like Deion Sanders. I mean, you film 2 sports.
And at a high level.
At the highest level.
We just need to get you some shades. Swap those out with those mirrorless ones and you be set.
So as someone who films 2 sports, what would you say is the main difference between covering a baseball game and a basketball game?
If like someone steals my job just because of like one secret that I give away, like how good am I? Don't see like shooting at high school or college as a downside because you have full control. I think it's less about who you're filming and more about how you're filming it, right? If you approach it in a way of pushing the creative limits and telling stories that you want to tell, you might even be in a better position as far as like putting yourself in a good spot to get a really good gig.
Scott took the day off. I go to the game. He's up in a suite. What's your
little load management?
Yeah, they're load managing their shooters over at Spectrum.
You're running with your tripod, your FX9, your audio gear, and then a light panel, and like you're like running down the hallway trying to get to a room. You don't spend an hour or more setting up like this beautiful interview. It's like I have 30 seconds and Clayton Kershaw's walking in here.
This is Ike Gordon 13. He asks, how do you keep content fresh with the length of a baseball season?
Incredible question.
Scott's still trying to work through that. They're the best production food. Is an Uncrustable, dude. If you're getting your team together and you got to shoot, bring them some Uncrustables. They'll be fired up.
So I graduated from University of Washington 2016.
We're gonna kick your ass here in a few days,
We'll
and
see
I
about
cannot wait for that game.
Put some money down.
I forgot $20 right now. I know it's a little steep. Oh, dude, this is gonna feel so sweet as a pod clip. Dubs down. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 82 of the 505 podcast. Today we welcome a very special guest. We got Scott Ohashi in the house. He is a video producer behind Backstage Lakers and Backstage Dodgers. He's incredibly talented, and I'm stoked for you guys to hear this one.
And not only is he incredibly talented, he's like incredibly nice. Dude, his energy was like infectious. What a great guy. I loved how he talked about storytelling. You know, a lot of the people that I feel like we have on the podcast are super focused in the social media side of stuff. And, you know, you can create stories within a shorter piece of content, but he's working on 30-minute long pieces, and hearing his process within creating stories for a longer piece of content is really interesting stuff.
I mean, he goes into his color grading process. He goes into his sound design process, how he goes about getting all of these shots and shooting 2 completely different sports. Basketball is a lot faster than baseball, and he talks about all of the differences and how he goes about creating this content, what, you know, his conversations are like with his editors and with other people on the Spectrum team. It really was interesting. Also, I just had media day, dude.
I don't know how you're like awake right now, because you shot media day and then we went right into the podcast. So I just appreciate you for showing up, and you must be exhausted.
I mean, I've been cutting all day.
You chefed a banger.
We're taking a little bit of a break to do this late at night, and then I'm gonna hop back and finish this off. But one really important thing, right? As I got to use 3 cameras today. I haven't ever done that before, bringing 3 different pieces of camera gear that I was actually using at the same time.
Okay.
So I had a C200, I had a C70, and I had the ZVE1. And
how are you carrying all these cameras?
The C200 was strictly used for like pressers, so I wasn't technically like on the C200, but it was used today. The C70 was my main situation that I was running around with, and I had it on a Ronin. Thanks for letting me borrow that.
Dude, I got you.
Come on.
How do you like shooting a C70 versus C200?
The C200 or the C70 is night and day better than the C200. It just looks better. Sure. It has a very like cinematic feel to it, and I don't know if you can't really tell unless you're looking at the footage side by side. You can really see the main differences. But then the ZV1 was great because I could just hold it like low in places, and it just gets this like very wide, cool picture that I was able to splice into stuff. And I feel like when you have a smaller form factor camera like that, it's not like, oh, there's a video camera here.
Totally.
And so people are more like comfortable and
less assuming.
Yeah, it's less assuming. It's like, oh, I know that like little pea shooter camera, but it was amazing. And it worked super well. And so I was able to kind of like sideline that. If I didn't want to be like holding the Ronin in front of someone's face, I could just have that there. You know what the best part about it is, though?
Tell me.
They lasted all day on Lexar cards.
Wow. You shot media day on Lexar cards?
Lexar cards,
Come on.
dude. And it's linked down below. So you use our code. It really helps the boys out a lot. So if you're looking for another memory card, I was using the V90 128s, and they're just amazing, dude. They lasted me all day. I didn't have any problems with them. And I've been stress testing them for the last 6 to 8 months with the ZV1 with all my personal stuff. it's been working amazing. So I really hope that you guys take my advice. Go check out those cards in the description. Dude.
They're linked down below. And I was shooting a music video with Keon on the Lexar cards. And here's the thing. I made the mistake of thinking the A1 had dual native ISO at 12,800. It doesn't, okay? So the footage is a little grainy, but I got the footage, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't rely on the 12,800 on the A1, but I can rely on the Lexar cards
to get that footage.
Exactly.
Dude.
And I've been using it to shoot the Monarch gym stuff. And they're reliable, man. They're great cards. So hit that link in the bio. Go copy you a Lexar card.
And let's get into this one-handed crack. Scott, give me the one-handed crack, dude.
Okay, the rules.
Yeah, the rules. Just pick it up off the table and don't mess it up. Oh shit. Give me the spin. Could you spin around? That sounded like you performed surgery on the can. I don't know how you didn't dent it, but I heard a lot of dents from my ears.
Not gonna lie, I did dent it.
You did,
but it popped.
You popped it out, and that's good. That's great stuff. So we're gonna allow about a 6'9" to start off the pod. Scott, welcome to the show.
Highest score we've had in a while.
Yeah,
no kidding.
We've been getting a lot of zeros, a lot of NAs, because people just don't listen to the rules. It's very simple, and I say it every time. I say, don't pick it up off the table, and then people just.
You said something interesting though. Now, if you dent it while opening it, but they pop back out,
it docks a little bit. So like if that was a fine one and you didn't like pop those dents,
I couldn't lie.
You were gonna creep up to high 7 territory.
Okay. What's the highest? Can we play the highest score right now?
The highest score I think was Tyler Babin. I think ever.
He had in the 9s.
He had a 9. It was just insane.
It was really, really good. But this was also at a time when Braden
was being a little more charitable.
He was being a little lax on his scores. He since has cracked the whip. But what I'm wondering is if you dent it and the dents stay, that's a lower score than if you dent it and they pop out.
If it dents and it stays, it can't be above a 5.
Because let's talk about it's about the presentation here, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like you can fuck something up when you're shooting it.
Exactly.
But then
if your editor
cover
cooks
it up, come on now.
True.
Dude, so you just got done covering a team that just broke 100 wins. What does your last month look like? Because I don't get to see you for a portion of the year. You kind of go hibernation mode on me.
I do.
And then you just come out of the woodworks and you'll show up and I'll be like, holy shit, Scott's back.
I'm back.
Yeah. So, and I went to cover a Dodger game the other night. Scott took the day off. He just took the day off. I go to the game. He's up in a suite.
You know what's funny is I saw you down there.
Oh, you did?
Running around.
Oh, you were at the game, just not shooting.
He was in the suite. He was in the suite. They were all hanging out. They're just not working. Unbelievable.
I couldn't imagine taking a day off.
Yeah, I couldn't either. But what's your
last?
last?
Do it.
What's
your
last
load management?
Yeah. They're load managing their shooters over at Spectrum.
It's impressive. Apply now.
You got to get ready for playoffs. You know, you guys just made playoffs.
It's
ready.
like, you know,
honestly,
Freddie plays through.
Now that I think about it, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm happy they gave you guys the day off because you're covering a lot of games. What does your last few months looked like?
It's a lot, but it's fun, man. Like, I don't know how much you guys have seen of what we actually get a chance to do with backstage, but it's awesome. We tell a 30-minute behind the scenes story every Friday, so we go out and film behind the scenes content of these guys, and they're grateful enough to give us a lot of their time most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time. And so we're in charge of, you know, pitching stories and getting ideas going and then going out and tapping guys on the shoulder and seeing if they're down to do it. And sometimes they're like, yeah. And sometimes they're like, no, which is fair because they're there to play a, professional sport. So, but it's been good. We've had a chance to do some really fun stories, and it's a good time. And it's tough though. As you know, it's a long season. 162 baseball games is a lot, but man, it's like getting a chance to be on the other side of things. It's like not just filming content, but getting a chance to tell stories, and like a little bit longer form too is pretty special.
Do you prefer the longer form stuff over the shorter form stuff?
I'm in between. They're both special for different reasons, right? Getting a chance to do long form stuff, you really get a chance to build out the story. But there's also something cool about doing quick stuff and trying to see if you can capture attention quickly. And that's usually where, like, what I do in my socials, like my edits and stuff, is just like fun things that are little that I'm trying out and testing. And so I kind of get a chance to do a little bit of both in that sense.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you also you said fuck vertical, fuck horizontal. You just do whatever flies that day.
That's a big thing for me.
You're a big nonconformist. Yo, shout out to you. I love it. But how do you kind of decide? Because you flip flop between going vertical, going back to horizontal, and I look forward to it every time to see what you end up picking, because you used to not post stuff. And you have started posting a ton of stuff, and I love it. I love seeing all the work that you're doing, you know?
I still don't post that much though. You know, it's funny, but my big thing, and like I think what I try to pride myself on, is not always relying on like trends or things that are popular within social media at the time, and more just focusing on what's inspiring to me when I open up Premiere, DaVinci. Like, what am I interested in doing? What am I interested in creating? And sometimes, as everyone knows, when you shoot horizontal and you go to crop things vertical,
it just never looks as good.
Ever. Composition's all off. That's a huge thing, right? And I'm like, I don't really care if this gets a ton of views or not. I like it. And so I want to share it. And that's where that comes from. But then there's sometimes where I'm like, oh yeah, like it would look really cool vertical, or if the resolution is good enough and I can crop in 2x, 3x and make it look okay. But yeah, it's really just like whatever I feel is looking good, and whatever. I mean, it all depends on the edit too, right? Like sometimes you want to have a little bit longer and have it be horizontal. Sometimes you like want it to be vertical and have it be a little shorter. So I don't know. To be honest, I don't have a formula, a plan. Oftentimes I just kind of toss it in a timeline and go from there. So
you're talking about how there's something special about both, right? The short form and long form. You enjoy the long form because you enjoy the storytelling aspect of that. How involved are you in figuring out like what stories are going to be told on Backstage? I was watching some of the stuff on YouTube, and there was like a September call up. Who was the guy? It was Colton Wong.
Yes.
You guys did the feature on him. So are you in tune with like, okay, he got called up, let's do a feature on him? Or is Spectrum coming to you and saying, hey, we got this guy called up, we need you to cover him and like put together something?
That's us, baby. That's us.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because as soon as this, like, for example, Colton Wong, as soon as he got traded, literally the day he gets traded, all right, we're going to Seattle in 3 weeks. Let's do this. You know, boom, it's a story. Because every week we have to fill a story. So 3 segments. And so we got to hit that 23:30 mark every Friday. So anything that comes up that's interesting, we're like, all right, stamp that, write that down. We're going to come back to that later. So as soon as he got traded to us, we're like, okay, he's in the minors right now. We're, working his way up. Gets called up, like, all right, boom, going to Seattle. But then it's like, that's the idea, right? Which we have a lot of times, but then we got to go ask the guy. So, hey man, what's up, Scott? Do you want to get bugged for a day while you go back to the place, you just got DFA'd from a few weeks prior? And, he was awesome. He was so great, so gracious with his time, was so down to do, something with us. So, but yeah, that's something we hop on a call every Friday and Monday, talk through ideas and pitch different stories and whatnot. And
who's on the call? Because you get to work with like a producer, right? Who makes up the Spectrum team?
It's a small squad. We got Pat Becker, which is our, I guess, executive producer, and then Brett Teal, who brought me into the job. Brad Feig is also one of the lead editors, and then we have Nathan Palm. Shout out Nate Palm. Mark, who you work with, the Lakers. That's right. Mark isn't always on the calls with us, but so it's usually 2 editors, Nate, myself, Pat, and like 2 PAs. So 7 of us. So it's pretty small squad to create a 30-minute episode each Friday.
And Braden was telling me you only shoot. You don't edit?
Yeah, for the show.
How nice is that?
It's amazing. God, yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's great. It's something to try not to take for granted,
Yeah, don't take it for granted. So
I really don't know how I got here, to be honest with you. But I get a chance to just film, and then our editors are insane. Yeah. They can crush these stories so quickly. It's insane. Sometimes we're getting our footage to them the day before, 2 days before, and they still have 8-10 minutes to cut for a story. So it's awesome. How
conscious are you of knowing that you have to shoot enough footage for a 30-minute piece?
Very, very.
Because that's a lot. That's a lot.
And you shoot way different than like we shoot. Like I looked at Nate's clips one time. He was like helping with an edit, and you guys are rolling for extended periods of time. Like it's like 7, maybe 10-minute shots, and then he'll cut, and then another 5, and then maybe another 10 or something. For content, at least, we're getting like 5 to 15 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. It's like very short clips. And so, what is the process like for kind of getting all of that content together for a show?
Well, we have a structure for stories, depending on the story, what we're doing, but we're always being conscious of like, do we have enough elements? So the big part of what we're doing is like, you can interview a guy about getting called up or, coming into the big leagues or whatever, but don't you want to hear from his parents? Don't you want to hear from his fiance or wife who've been going through that journey the whole time with them? The parents that drove him to practice for years and years and, traveled out to the minors to see him play. So they're like, oh, college coach is here to see his debut, or, so we're always thinking about different elements and how we can build out the story to kind of round it out. Sure, you can interview the guy that's getting called up and how cool is this, man? But don't you want to hear from the other people who made that story and made that happen? So we're always thinking about how we can build that out, how we can make it better. And so, yeah, a lot of our clips are a little bit longer, especially with interviews and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, for game purposes, we never know when people are going to cut. It's not just like, all right, we have a pitch here and a hit here. It's like, okay, well, we might want to get a cutaway of the opposing pitcher, might want to get a cutaway of this guy at first base to, build out the story of, or build tension or whatever it is. So we think about a lot of different things when we're filming, both games and story. So it's a lot different than just like filming for social, which I also think about too. But it's like two different ways of thinking when you're
completely
filming.
Yeah. And I also think that you do a great job of getting both sides of it, because if you haven't, you should go check out Scott's IG. I'll link it below. But I also see all these different B-roll shots that you get. And so, like, let's use a hypothetical. Colton gets called up. Okay, you have these interviews. Like, obviously, that has to be there. The interviews have to be there. How do you then go about getting good B-roll, but also not making it look cheesy at the same time, and like getting shots that don't, like, when they're saying the thing, it's not always like popping onto the onto the screen? How do you go about getting these shots that are just so captivating and keep us locked into the show?
I'd say a big part of that's the editors. Our editors crush that. They know how to lay things out, and because I know exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Oh, getting to the field. It shows them getting to the field.
Exactly.
Walking onto the field for the first time, walking on.
Yes.
So like, they do a really good job pacing that stuff out. I think I'm just my thought process is like, how do I capture his emotion? And I'm always trying to keep an eye out for that, because that's what's going to be the most interesting thing, right? Him walking onto the field the first time is like a good thing to get, but like, it's good because it's going to bring some kind of emotion about within him, right? So I'm thinking about those moments, and I'm just thinking about how do I capture that? And then our editors go back and crush it and mix it all up and spit it back out that same week. So,
and what year is it of Spectrum for you?
2.
It's year 2.
2.5.
What has changed the most from the first time you ever stepped onto the diamond to now with your process filming?
So much, man.
Lots to unpack.
Lots. I think my ability to see a story and produce. I think like my producing skills were subpar before starting this journey at Spectrum, but my team has really helped identify and point out things. Hey, you missed this. Hey, you missed that. Hey, we can do this better. And so now I think, like, when I look back at when I started versus now, I think my ability to identify a story, know the list of things to get, and then get them has improved drastically.
On the producer side of stuff, someone might see you and you're like, oh, he just films for Spectrum. So can you kind of break down like what specifically comes with being a producer, I guess in quotes, because maybe that's not your actual title. Does that include like really just being able to get those interviews of like the other family members, or like what else comes into play with the producer side?
Yeah, a lot. So our role is documentarian, but yeah, like you said, we wear a lot of hats. So we're obviously in charge of filming out in the field, but yeah, like you said, we're on the calls each week talking about ideas to actually pitch to players. So we come up with ideas. We have a list of 4 or 5 ideas. We go to the field, get there early, and then we start talking to guys. So go up to players and start asking them. I consider this part of producing. First of all, you know how it is. Finding athletes once they're even there is one of the hardest parts. So like They can be at, eating lunch. They can be in the weight room, or they can be, getting worked on for medical, whatever it is. And so finding a guy is half the battle within the clubhouse or the arena. And then once we find him, we got to, pitch the idea rather quickly. Talk about elevator pitch. You have 10, 15 seconds. Sometimes if you know the guy, you can, build it out a little bit more. But so within that producing realm, pitching the idea to the guy, getting him on board. Okay, when works for you? Where works for you? For interviews, for example, we don't have a lot of rooms, especially on the road, to like a dedicated interview room. So we're finding opposing locker rooms to film in, and different hallways in the basement of the facility. Like we have to figure out all of those details too, because we often travel alone. So what else goes into it? I mean, and then it's writing the interview questions and then setting up the interview. And
are you guys doing that on the call with the group, or is it something that they're like, oh, Scott, come up with these, 5 questions or something?
It's a mix of both. Yeah. I think our PAs will help with that sometimes. Our editors will help with that sometimes. We'll write them sometimes. And then once we get those questions and that story that we want, we sit down the guy. So we record, do audio, light it. We're in charge of directing it, asking the questions. And then too, it's like things that happen on the fly. Obviously within this space, things happen, rather quickly. And so if you notice something that you need to ask again, that's kind of being a producer too. Oh, he just went and hugged his mom. Let's go ask about that interaction. Or, oh, he just, had this moment that happened right in front of you. Got to make sure we ask him about that later too. So kind of keeping mental notes as things go on.
Yeah. I feel like the pre-planning is so important. How you ask, not only just what kind of questions you ask, but how you ask them, it changes it. And I feel like I've noticed that a lot with how we do the podcast. The more in-depth research we do on a guest, it really changes things. And also going off of interviews, can you maybe give some advice on how to better produce an interview in the sense of lighting and camera angles and all that kind of stuff? Because making an interview look good, I feel like you see a lot of interviews and they look really shitty. Do you have any tips on making interviews look great, especially when you're not maybe in such a controlled environment, being on the road so much?
Absolutely. I do want to talk about one thing that you mentioned though, about doing your research beforehand. This is one thing that's really changed for me, is learning how to conduct an interview and ask questions. And I think the biggest thing when conducting an interview is knowing what you want them to say already. Knowing their whole story and knowing what you want them to say, and then phrasing it to get that out of them. And if they don't say that, asking them again. And if they don't say it again, even mentioning, hey, if you're comfortable, I know you've had this quote before, or I know that you have felt this way before. Could you talk about that in more depth? So I think doing your research and going in fully prepared and having all the details laid out, knowing exactly how you want the story to unfold, is the best way to conduct an interview. Because that's how you're going to get the most out. And I mean, you can go in blind and be like, I'm going to learn as I'm asking the questions, which happens sometimes, to be fair. But if you really want, your piece to come out full and with, all the points that you want to get across, having all that information in front of you.
It's almost like storyboarding through questions.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like in the doc space, you can't plan for everything, because stuff is going to come up. But if you want to have a base of a story, kind of having an idea in your head beforehand is the best way to do it.
And what do you guys bring to the games? I know that the Spectrum boys, you guys all shoot on FX9s.
Yes.
What other gear though is essential for this run and gun docu-style filmmaking?
It's a good question. Basically, so we run on a 24-70, have a few batteries. I got my shoulder rig. Always have a stick mic with me, a top light, my little fanny pack.
Fanny pack's pretty cute, I won't say.
It's super cute.
Couldn't catch me in it, but
never seen you in one.
I'm a crossbody fanny kind of guy.
That's what I was saying.
But that's only for that cord that I have to bring with me. I would not wear it if I could choose.
Do you guys have to wear vests?
Fuck
Lakers.
Those vests.
Lakers we do.
God, I hate those vests.
They're not cool.
I hate the vests at every arena.
I will say,
we should microchip us, and then we'll be set. So then it just auto, we scan when we go on the
He's
court.
got a vest. He's got an internal vest.
He's good. And then we can look way cooler without the vest.
I will say though, our vests have pockets, which
The vests of the Lakers are the best vests in the NBA, and I stand on that hill.
I will agree.
We got a little pocket you can throw the lenses in.
That's a great lens pocket.
Yeah, it is
battery pocket.
It is. At least, and sometimes if you're lucky, you'll be shooting at halftime, and then I'll feel some popcorn from the last guy that had the vest, and I'm like,
some M&Ms.
Yeah, wait, you don't have your own vest?
No, we switch, but we.
Oh my god!
But we usually get the same numbers every time because we're very superstitious. So we're always rocking, for the most part, the same number of vests. But then if there's a Clipper game, oh no, they wouldn't rock them. So I don't know how the hell does popcorn get? Someone just putting popcorn.
The guy before, he's always hooking you up with snacks.
Yeah,
that's
snack boy.
Little M&Ms in there. I'm like, oh shit.
So wait, do you only have 24 to 70?
No, so 100 to 400, and then we have a set of primes. Oh, and 70 to 200, and then we have a set of primes at 24, 35, 50, 85, 1-4. But we kind of split those up between the three of us shooters. So
is there always three people at the Dodger game?
Usually one.
Oh, okay.
One person shooting. Sometimes there's two of us, like one person producing and then one person shoots, but it's usually just one person.
Oh, so you're saying on the whole team that'll shoot Lakers as well, those are all the glass that's available?
All the glass, yeah. We all have a 24 to 70. We all have a 1-4. We all have a 70-200. And then there's, between those four primes, we split them up.
What do you find leaves your camera the least?
I mean, 24 to 70 is on 90% of the time. Well, if you don't count game footage. And then interviews are up. So back to your question, circling back to that.
Yeah.
If I'm in a shitty room, I throw a prime on. That's number one. And then I always try to shoot into a corner to add depth, at least see the corner of the room. So I'm not shooting against just a flat wall. I try to stay away from that. Just to at least add something.
It's a great tip.
Dimensional. And then we bring like a 1x1. And so I'll try to and oftentimes it's like, oh, you're free to do the interview? Like, are you free right now? And so I've learned that we try to set up beforehand as much as we can, but sometimes you can't. And so you're running with your tripod, your FX9, your audio gear, and then a light panel. And you're running down the hallway trying to get to a room. And so it's not like you don't spend an hour or more setting up this beautiful interview. It's like, I have 30 seconds and Clayton Kershaw's walking in here. So you got to be really careful about your setups and quick. So shoot into a corner, light it, try to get some shadow, try to get a hair light, and then use depth of field to your advantage.
Are you guys shooting S-Log 3?
S-Log 3, yeah.
Nice.
And do you pull, or do you do auto, or do you kind of do a hybrid?
It's a hybrid for me. Yeah. I'd say with Sony and really just technology, camera technology going, that it's come so far. And so with sit-down interviews, if I can just track a guy's eye, I'll leave it on audio. Unless it's going to bounce back and forth. I notice I'm in a bad lighting situation, but I'm not scared to use auto to my advantage, especially while I'm asking questions. I have to direct the interview. I'm also monitoring audio. Yeah. So to have auto on my side, to not worry about him, the micro adjustments in 1.4 back and forth.
And Sony's also just
They're
got the
amazing
best
at that.
They're so good.
So, okay, when you're filming the game, right, you have the story that you're covering for that week. So I guess when I originally thought about how you would go about shooting the game, I'm thinking you're kind of just shooting it how Braden's shooting it, where it's I'm trying to capture the highlights. Are you actually going about it where you're I'm focusing on that player or that story? So I don't really care if Clayton Kershaw's on the mound this week because I'm not focusing on his story. That happens a lot. Yeah. So we try to be smart. I mean, obviously there's 162 regular season games, so we try not to get burned out. So if there's a stretch or a series or a few games where it's okay, we have our focus on this guy's not in the lineup, this week or the next day or two or whatever it is, we'll try not to film as much, or we'll be okay, Colton Wong, perfect example. He didn't start in Seattle until I think the third game. So the first two games I'm ready for a pinch hit at bat, or if he gets comes in to run or something, or get subbed in on defense later in the game. So I'm ready for that. But the beginning of the game might not matter as much. And so we try to be smart about filming in our energy in that. But yeah, but then sometimes too, you never know what's going to happen in a game. And then sometimes oh, hey, remember that game, in June? Now we want to highlight this guy. Did anyone get any footage of that? And then you go back and it was me filming or someone else filming, and they're nope, didn't film anything. So you never know when stuff's gonna come up, and guys get hurt. It could be their last game. That could be a thing for any player and any athlete.
So you just never know when the last time, you know, a guy might be going onto the field. And so I guess that's why we're called documentarians, because we're just documenting as much as we can. But yes, we try to save energy on.
And going off of the docu style stuff, I noticed that a lot of it, like when you're shooting not the games, it's very like run and gun, not super cinematic. Then when it cuts to the game footage, it's more cinematic. And then there's also shots that are like super slow-mo. Are you shooting everything in the game at 120 frames a second? Or are you going back and forth between 24, 60, 120?
People also always want to know, like, how do you pick? How do you decide what's living in 120, what's living in 24, what's living in 60? And
this is where I think like we differ a lot between like social and like docu kind of stuff. My game footage, 95, maybe even 98% of it is in 24. So
I wish it could be in 24.
It's almost all 24. So in-game footage, if it's a big moment, like Colton Wong's at bat, for example, his first at bat back in Seattle, that's probably 60 frames. Freddie Freeman returns to Atlanta, even bigger moment, that's 120. Pre-game stuff, 120, 60, 24 doesn't really matter. In game, I'm keeping it almost all at 24, just because the pace of the edit, and I've learned this with our show specifically, it keeps it going. And 48 and 60 frames can slow it down, unless it's like a big moment that needs to have it. You know, a crucial run is on third base. They could, you know, have I was going to say a walk-off, but in a walk-off, we're going to go back to 24 because the Sony FX9 captures audio in 24 and doesn't in 60 and 120.
That's great. Great for the camera.
So, yeah. I mean, it's a bulk of it is in 24, I would say.
That's so surprising because I just automatically assume, I don't shoot sports. I'm like, I'd be ripping 60 or 120 like most of the time. So it's really cool to hear you say that you're shooting 24 most of the time.
It also looks way different though.
Totally.
When you leave 60 fast, it looks horrible. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. And that's why like we stay away from that. And so we aren't big on like speed ramps or like, you know, that kind of stuff in our specific edit. I have nothing against them. I like doing them. And there's times where like I'm pulling clips and I like post stuff on my own social and I'm like, well, I can't do much of this because it's all in 24. But that's okay because it's like pushed me to be creative within what I have. And so I think, yeah, shooting in 24 is just like what our show has. But it is tempting. There are lots of times where I'm like, and you know, I can be selfish sometimes and I see like a cool moment and I'll switch to 60 real quick and try to pick something off. But for the most part, it's 24.
I got a question from a listener. This is Ike Gordon 13. He asks, how do you keep content fresh with the length of a baseball season?
Incredible question. Ike.
Scott's still trying to work through that.
Ike, if you have any answers for me,
give us a call.
Please let me know. Yeah, call in now. I think that's where like, and this is why I got into everything is like, I'm just curious. So I think like for me and the way my brain works is like staying away from trends has helped me because it's just like, okay, what is interesting to me right now? And what like happens in my brain when I film and like, how do I want to put something into a timeline? Like, and like everyone has their own interests. And I think like being different and trying to do different things is what keeps things fun and creative. So put on a different lens. I think lens choice, I think you've talked about this before. If you're ever in like a creative rut, get a creative LUT.
Get a creative LUT. And then after you get out of your creative rut, get a new lens.
Thanks, Ike. Does that answer your question? But like switching lenses can be a huge thing. Like I would probably never go out onto the field pregame with my 1-4, but maybe doing that and like maybe bringing like a monopod out there or some sticks out there pregame could completely change the way I film, you know, warm-ups for baseball guys.
Or an interview.
Or an interview, yeah.
100 to 400. You ever shoot an interview at a 400 mil lens?
Just compressed.
Rented the whole hotel out. Did in the room next door too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like interviewing from like 3 miles back. I'm gonna walkie-talkie these questions, okay? A 3-second pause in between. Yeah, I mean, try it out. It might not give you the best interview, but I think that's a big way for me to kind of just shoot things differently. I think that and location. So maybe going inside the dugout and filming stuff, or you know, going to a different part of the field and filming something throughout the game, roaming the crowd and filming things throughout the game, throwing on a gimbal. I mean, just do things that you wouldn't usually do. And And then I think you take all that, and then the other thing is the edit, right? And being creative in the edit, you have a chance to do whatever you want. You don't have to stick to baseball. Doesn't have to be boring in the edit, right? You can make it interesting. It is a boring game, I will say that, but you can. There's still cool things that happen, and you can still make it interesing in the edit. So.
And I think that's where I've been so drawn to the new work that you've been putting out over these last 2 years. I'm just like, you soak me into this beautiful baseball piece, and I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even know there was like 4 people in this game, and it's just you. It's amazing. Like, I see all these different crazy angles that you're getting, and the perspective is changing. It doesn't all look like it was on a wide GoPro or something. You're getting like these tight zooms, and you're getting the pitcher and the batter and all the color of the game, the crowd. You got to go watch Scott's videos is what I'm trying to tell you.
Do you have to like remind yourself that you're getting to shoot sports at the highest level, especially during a 162 game season? I got really burnt out doing music, and I found myself having to like really remind myself that I'm getting to shoot like a huge musical act every single weekend. You know, Braden's getting to shoot the Lakers, you're getting to shoot the Lakers and the Dodgers. Like, there's times where I feel like you could be either in a creative rut or be like, damn, like another freaking game. I've done this so many times.
You could also be in a creative rut too.
True.
And that's the worst place to be.
It is. It's a dark place. Yes, I think daily I try to remind myself of that daily. I think it can be really easy which sounds so dumb to think, like, to say out loud. You're like, how do you get bitter about things, or how do you get annoyed when you're standing on the field at Dodger Stadium, or if you're standing on the court at crypto.com, formerly known as Staples Center.
R.I.P.
Rip. But like, I think it's just that perspective thing of like knowing if you've had jobs in the past, knowing that you could be sitting in an office or you could be doing something different, and also knowing that there's so many people that would kill to have the opportunity that you have, and also knowing that like it's just a really rare thing to get a chance to be in where you are. So I think it's perspective. And it's really important to check yourself, I think, daily, and make sure that you are grateful for being where you are, because hardly anyone, we've talked about this before, hardly anyone gets a chance to do what we do, let alone go into locker rooms and, get to know these guys personally. And so it's something you can't take for granted. And if you don't think about that for a long time, you can get bitter. But I found that like keeping myself in check is the best way to do that. And you got to do that daily.
Yeah.
This is one more from Roc Nation. Okay. This is from Andrea_Volpini. She asks, what do you eat before a gig? Are you a light meal kind of person or a nutritious big feast?
They feeding you good over at Dodger?
Yeah.
You putting down Dodger dogs?
I'm gonna out the Dodgers for a second.
Okay.
Oh.
Media food. It's not it.
Could be
really?
better. Oh.
Lakers got the good food.
And it's free.
Oh, you have to pay for it?
$15.
No way.
Swear to God.
What? We got to get that fixed.
I know. So I just go in there and sometimes I just eat ice cream and chips because it's free.
So
to answer your question, Andrea,
you meal prep and you bring some Tupperware?
Yeah.
Some chicken brown rice and broccoli?
I bring Tupperware to fill up the ice cream and bring it home.
Takes it home.
That's my meal
Freezes
prep.
it
Yeah,
in their freezer.
It's highway robbery. No, I mean, I not think I'd be talking about my diet on this podcast.
People want to know.
Yeah, Andrea really wants to know if you're prepping or
not prepping. If you know someone who wants to prep for me, let me know.
Give you a call.
Give me a call. No, to be honest, Chipotle is a staple. So if you know anyone at Chipotle who wants to hook it up, let me know. But no, Chipotle is a big thing. I'm always carrying fruit snacks because I'm a type 1 diabetic. Shout out. So you never know when that low blood sugar is coming. And then they also got some gummy bears and the Lakers, the toppings for the ice cream. So you can get a cup full of those sometimes.
I always see him putting his hand into the thing. It's
two hands.
Weird. It's so weird.
Gotta touch them all.
But you got to experience both because you shoot Lakers and Dodgers.
Yeah.
So when you get to go shoot the Lakers again, you're like, this free food, man. Feels good to be back.
Yes.
And we got an ice cream machine.
I mean, the Dodgers do too. It's pretty good. But you guys got the slushy or the
lemonade slushy machine.
The frozen lemonade machine.
It hits different. When you go in there, you're like, oh my God, at
and
halftime.
Low key Uncrustables.
I put you onto the Uncrustables.
A staple.
Yeah, they didn't know that they had Uncrustables. I've been sneaking them for them ever since.
Well, I just tried Uncrustables for the first time like a couple months ago at the beach this summer with Braden, and they're pretty life-changing.
They're great.
Yeah. They really do change. They're the best production food. Is an Uncrustable, dude. If you're getting your team together and you got to shoot, bring them some Uncrustables. They'll be fired up.
Pop those in your vest this year. I'm just saying, halftime rolls around.
Might leave one for the next person.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
Braden must have been here. Again.
Scott, so back to where we were talking about being down in the field and being grateful for this job that we get to cover these amazing sports teams on a nightly basis. You were doing something though before you came out to LA, and what did that look like?
Yeah, so I graduated from University of Washington 2016.
We're gonna kick your ass here in a few days,
We'll
and
see
I
about
cannot wait for that game.
Put some money down.
I forgot $20 right now. I know it's a little steep. Oh, dude, this is gonna feel so sweet as a pod clip. Dubs down. Oh, this is gonna be a great pod clip. I can't wait.
It's gonna let you keep talking. We'll see.
We even got those new uniforms specifically to be just running them up all day long. All right.
What are you guys ranked?
7, I think.
They're 7, we're 8. So it's like, kind of going.
My money's on you, baby.
That's interesting, bro.
Anytime Oregon goes down, it's a good fucking day.
My man. We'll see, bro. I'm gonna put no Uncrustables in your pocket.
Back to the early days.
Yeah. All right, bring it back. Went to University of Washington 2016, studied psychology of all things. And then from there, this is where the journey starts to get weird, and it continues to stay weird for the whole time. So I finished my degree in 2016. I went into medical sales. I sold surgical lights and surgical tables to hospitals around the whole state of Washington.
Holy crap.
And so during that time, I realized that I did not enjoy what I was doing, and I bought my first camera. So I bought the A6000. I actually put a bid on it in eBay, and I was hoping I didn't win because I didn't have the money. And I won. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go broke buying this camera. So I bought the camera, and I was in love with it. And so everywhere I drove, I would like stop on the side of the road and take photos and take videos. And then on these drives, I would listen to YouTube videos and podcasts on how to use a camera. And so I'd go on these 6-hour drives to Eastern Washington or 4-hour drives to the coast and up and down the coast. And I just put on a podcast and or type in YouTube, like, why does this video suck? And like find a video and like make a playlist and like listen to them. So that's how I learned how to use a camera at first. And then I got into, a friend asked me to film a wedding for her, and I was like, nope, too much pressure. And she's like, you're going to do it. And I'm like, nope. She's like, you're going to do it. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. So I did it and learned a lot. And shortly after that, I decided to quit my medical sales job. My boss was like, what are you going to do next? And I was like, I'm going to do wedding videos. I had 3 booked when I quit my job. So I was terrified.
And were you paying rent at a place?
Absolutely. I had enough to pay for like 1.5 months of rent, but I was like, I'm going to do it. I was 20, almost 24. And I ended up filming like 18 weddings that summer. So I like made it work, but that was like how I learned how to use a camera. So I didn't really start filming until like 2017.
You had 3 weddings booked though. How do you go from having 3, quitting your job, to now booking 18?
It's a great question. I think people found out that I did it for really cheap, and I didn't know what the market was. So I was actually talking to Ed about this at the time. He's like, you're charging what? And I was like, I told him, and he's like, yeah, $13.
An Uncrustable?
Yeah, exactly.
And an Uncrustable.
At least 2. Yeah, I would charge 2 Uncrustables. And so word got around, and I had a lot of friends. A lot of my friends got married early, so they would just kind of toss me out to their friends. And when I told them my rate, I should have known better, but I didn't know anything about business. So I was like, oh, they're just saying yes, and I'm like making money, and I had no idea, I had no concept of how to charge for, a gig or a wedding. So yeah, I put out rates really cheap and just did a bunch, and that's where I learned how to use a camera. And that was 2017. And then my buddy Tyke, shout out Tyke, he saw one of my wedding videos, and then he brought me on to his baseball media company, worked there for about 1.5 years, and then we moved to LA in 2020.
With Taiki?
With Taiki, we lived together in Santa Monica, actually, like a mile down the road, which is crazy. Yeah, so we lived together, and then we made a video that my now coworker saw and was like, hey, we just had a guy quit. Like, would you be down to apply for this job? And
just DM'd you?
He actually went about it in a very proper way. He called Taiki and my other boss and asked if it was okay to talk to me. They said sure. So he called me and talked about the job. So yeah, but he just saw a video that had gone online, and then I applied for the job, and here we are.
Post your damn work, dude. That is like insane.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, really share your work.
Post your freaking work.
You really never know who's going to be seeing your stuff. So you go in to get interviewed, right? Or do you just kind of get handed the job?
Yeah, I mean, I do like 3 interviews. Yeah.
And so what are some of these questions they're asking you? Are they asking you about your ability to like produce, you know what I'm saying? Like how you were talking, like there's so much more that goes into the job as opposed to just being like, yo, I can chef this sick edit.
Right. I mean, for this job, okay.
No, and it's also equally important that like you could hang out with them, with the people that you interview, you know, and I don't think enough people talk about that it for sure matters how good your work is, but it also matters if they can hang out with you, and if you're going to ask Clayton Kershaw for a photo, or if you're just going to be super professional, get your job done, and make really cool stuff.
And are they down to get some ice cream with you or eat an Uncrustable with you?
Exactly.
That's the first question that they actually asked. Yeah.
Is Uncrustable or
how
ice
many
cream?
do you crush? And are you going to steal your ice cream from the Dodgers clubhouse?
Yes and yes. And they're like,
and bingo, we got our guy. So I think, well, that was the thing, is up to that point, I'd done a little bit of producing, but not to the extent that this job requires. And so I was upfront and honest about that. They asked about, you know, my shooting background, how long I've been doing it, my, you know, what I've shot in the past. Luckily, they had seen some of my work previously, but the portfolio wasn't huge. So I kind of had to sell myself a little bit. My now coworker helped sell me on it too. But yeah, I think just being honest about what your skill set is a big thing too, and not trying to do too much. And I think, like you were saying, is just showing that you can be a normal person, be a professional, and not be weird about being around these guys. I'm not even like the biggest sports fan, which is ironic because I'm like, there's a billion other people that would enjoy this job so much more than me. But I think I, you know, proved myself that I could be normal around these guys who were professionals, and that's what we are supposed to be too, and be professionals. We're essentially at the, you know, highest level, kind of in the sports world that you can go with a camera, at least for like these teams, and so we're supposed to be professionals too, and so we got to go about our business the right way, you know, and make sure that we're treating these guys with obviously respect, but not, you know, not weirding them out, not being weird, not crossing any lines, you know. So that's a big thing, and so I think that's part of, I think, what helped sell me for the job too.
When you originally came out to LA though, was there any moment of struggle in this journey, in the sense of like your clients, you weren't getting work with clients, or just, you know, you had your buddy Taiki, you had one friend that was down here, but you left your family and like you left a lot of your buddies up in Seattle. What was kind of going through your mind when you did make the jump to come out here with a friend?
I was terrified. I mean, I don't think I'd ever even been to LA before I moved down here. I had gone through like once, and then I'd been to like Disneyland before, but like I hadn't spent a concentrated amount of time in the city. So it was scary. But I decided if I wasn't going to take the jump then like when would I? And I was ready for a change. So I decided to go for it. But yeah, you know, leaving family is never easy. And then the uncertainty of a new city and not knowing what's next is always scary. And not knowing career-wise what's going to happen or pan out is terrifying. But I think just trusting yourself and trusting that the hard work will pay off is what you kind of have to lean on when you make that kind of jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that, you know, you came out here and grinded, dude. You were doing all kinds of different stuff, right? It wasn't just weddings. You're filming anything and everything, right?
Well, it was mostly just like the stuff with the baseball media company with Momentum at the time. So, but that did take up a ton of time. And I like did a little bit of freelance stuff here and there, and it was a mix of weddings that weren't just in California, but also in Seattle and some other places. So, but yeah, saying yes to things. And I had a friend who would bring me out to set sometimes so I could see what that was like. And just saying yes to different experiences out here. You probably won't get paid, and that's okay. And if you do, then that's awesome. But just saying yes to things that come up, and just being around set, holding up a light for someone, holding up a flag, just whatever you got to do to like just see what else is out there in the city is super important.
You also brought up how you were shooting baseball content prior to getting this Spectrum job. Mm-hmm. How important do you think is like proof of concept? Like, do you think they saw that you were able to do baseball specific stuff and be like, okay, I know that he can do that for them. He can probably do it for us.
I think it plays a role, but I think if you go back to what Taiki saw, I think he saw that I could tell a story, even though it's through a wedding. And so I think being able to have a grasp on like your editing skills and knowing how to cut something up and make things interesting. A lot of weddings are the same. So how can you make a wedding video feel emotional? And, you know, so like, I think it's a good challenge to have different projects, whatever you're doing, have it hit home for someone, for, you know, to tell a story. And so I think he saw that potential in me. And so I think this Spectrum job, kind of the same thing. They saw this potential in me to tell longer form stories. I hadn't told anything longer than 6-7 minute story before. And so I think they just kind of took a chance and were willing to kind of groom me. But yeah, I think proof of concept stuff is important though too. And going out and being creative, because that's where you get a chance to do your own thing and show your own creativity, especially in the edit. But yeah, I do think that's super important.
I want to take it back also to the stuff that you've been posting on your Instagram, your personal content, because some of it is like super dope.
Thank you.
The frames that you're posting, the photos, are those photos you're taking or are those frames from videos you shot?
Depends on how far back you go. Most of the recent stuff are just actual photos from my X100. So they're actually just still photos. If you go back far enough down there somewhere, I used to do like these split things of the 3 images on top of each other or whatever. And those were just like still frames from my FX9. So I'd go through my FX9 clips, stop it, screen grab, and then grade it. So both. And I do like the edits of the screen grabs themselves too, because I love motion blur. I love that you can tell the difference between a video frame and a photo. And I think you capture different things when you're doing both photo and video. So, and also too, like, I think with photo, it's important to find things that keep you creative. That X100 that I carry around, it's like silly, but it keeps me thinking differently. And it keeps me, so Ike, back to your question, Ike, having a camera on me has been like, it's been able to keep me fresh, keep me seeing things differently, because I'll frame things differently in a photo than I might would in a video. So practicing composition, practicing different lighting techniques with natural light out there, I think all that stuff plays into like staying fresh. But yeah, a lot of them are photos from my Fuji. Do
you like shooting daytime or in the arena in that controlled environment better?
Shooting with the lights in a basketball arena is so fun.
Oh, it's so fun.
It's so fun.
Flares.
It's hard to beat that. I think there are some stadiums in baseball though that messing with like some natural light and backlighting people is really cool too. So
which are your favorites?
It's a good question.
Like, does one come to mind where you're like
San Diego? I've also gotten some, I don't think this is my favorite, but there were some shots that I got. Actually, speaking of which, you can't get this in arena.
I can. You just couldn't get it in general.
I could get it in an arena.
Rain? Make it rain in the arena. You won't.
I'll get a rain machine.
Let's do it. LeBron's like, what?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Who the fuck did this? There was a game in DC. It always rains in DC. And shooting rain in baseball games is like, baseball's already kind of like, I don't know, people call it romantic, but I think like it can feel really emotional, like when you add the rain element to it. So that's something you really can't get in arenas or stadiums. So
when it's raining, are you covered? Are you just
personally? Not usually, but I will take my rain gear is a mix of either a towel from the dugout, a garbage bag that I find in the photo room, or if I'm really prepared, the rain gear that I usually don't bring with myself. But it's usually the first one, a towel. Like it's one of those like sweat towels.
You just throw it over.
I ask for the trainer to give me a towel, and I just throw it on my camera and I call it a day.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Exactly. Don't overthink it.
Weather seal.
Don't overthink it, people.
Yeah, that's funny. Where do you draw your inspiration from, though? Like, I was looking at some of your work, and even though you said there's a difference between your photography and the video, and you'd frame up a photo different than you would frame up a frame from a video, your video frames still look like photos. And I think that's like the telltale sign of like a good cinematographer. So like, where do you draw your inspiration from? Do you feel like you have a natural eye? Do you feel like you can teach an eye?
It's a lot of good questions, man.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, this is good. I'm going to out myself here and say that I've never been like a big movie watcher or TV watcher, which is super ironic because people are like, oh, you work with a camera every day. So I've been trying to get more into films and whatnot. So it's not necessarily from pulling inspiration from films. I don't know if I have a good answer for where I pull inspiration from. I don't think it's from social media either, because I think a lot of it just comes from like my curiosity of like, what can I create within the restrictions that I have, my restrictions being a baseball game. And also too, like, I'm not going out there and shooting for social media, so it's tough too. Like there's a lot of things that I want to do, but I'm shooting for the show. Oh, my diabetes is going off. Sorry.
Do we need to get you something?
No. Also, if there are any diabetics who are in the film world, let me know. I know one. I know one diabetic.
There's more out there for sure.
Well, let's find them.
Yeah,
they all listen to this pod.
Yeah, they're gonna comment.
Every diabetic filmmaker listens to 505. Love that. I think my inspiration just comes from like this curiosity I have of like, what can I create within what I have? And like I was saying, I don't get to like only shoot for social media, so a lot of the clips that I do have are just like for the show. And so I was like, oh, how can I like repurpose these to make something creative? So I don't know if I know where my inspiration comes from. And I do think you can teach an eye. I do think that there are things you can learn: composition, lighting, being on top of your camera settings. I think those things like really help. The biggest thing that I think can immediately help someone is just putting something in the foreground. I think that's a huge thing that helps give perspective to an image or to a video. And it helps provide depth. And I think a lot of people just want to get a clean shot, which that has its time and place for sure. But I think providing some perspective, depending on the story you're telling, putting something in front of yourself and the subject is a way to immediately add some interest to what you do. So I try to do that as much as I can. So
yeah, and going off of how cool your images look, your colors are pretty amazing. And so I'm Dustin Nichols asks, why them colors such butter? So I wanted you to put us on game. Why does your stuff look so good?
Why them colors such butter?
That is what we're looking for, yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely. Nicholas?
Dustin
Nicholas.
Dustin Nicholas.
I want
to be his friend. That sounds like a great question. That's just phrased so well. I appreciate that. I think I'm going to start from like kind of the origins of like, I think when I first started doing photography and video, I wanted to have a style so bad. And it took me probably 4 years to figure that out. And it's still evolving, like daily. Even throughout the season, it's evolved. But it takes a long time to develop your own personal style. And it goes back to like me not wanting to replicate things that I've already seen, even though a lot of inspiration that I have comes from things that I've seen, whether it's, conscious or subconscious. So I think being open to just trying new things is a big thing. But I think now a lot of my colors come from a film type look. So I've just researched a lot of like aspects of what goes into film and the characteristics that go into film. And then I find ways to recreate that in Lightroom. And then for DaVinci, I haven't told anyone this.
You don't have to tell him. If you
I
don't
do.
Want.
I don't care.
Oh, okay.
Because my thing is like, if like someone steals my job just because of like one secret that I give away, like how good am I? You know, like I feel like I should be more than just like one secret that I have. And if like I can't be differentiated just because of like one thing, then I feel like it should be anyone's, you know, game to take on the project or the client. So Tom Bowles has this awesome power grade in DaVinci called Cineprint. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or not.
No.
Check it out. It costs some money, but
I just downloaded DaVinci. And I'm like just playing around with it like a couple days ago. And the reason I bought it, this is fun. So the A1 does not have dual native ISO at 12,800. Learned that the hard way. I filmed a music video at 12,800, super grainy. And so I like was looking at this footage and I'm telling Braden, I'm like, dude, I think I'm fucked. Like this footage does not look good. And then I hit up my buddy Spencer and I was like, do you know of any good like denoise plugins or whatever? He's like, dude, DaVinci has the best. So I was messing around with it and it's saving my footage. But I know that you hear about DaVinci and you hear that like the colors.
Is it better
than
Premiere?
It's not even close.
Wow.
Oh, you're like way better.
Way better.
And so are you only in DaVinci now?
I edit, so I'm slowly transitioning my edits to DaVinci.
Oh my God.
Like just because it's a little bit more convenient, but I mainly edit in Premiere right now. And then I'll export in a ProRes 4444 or Quad 4. And then I'll open that back up in DaVinci and then use the auto scene detect to cut it all up. And then I'll go and grade each clip. And then I'll export that again. And then that's what I'll post.
It's a lot of steps.
It is, but I enjoy it. And it's part of like my creative process. Like for me, like just staying in Premiere and then coloring in Premiere, if I know it could be different or better, then like it's not worth it for me. So unless I'm inspired to like do something, I'm not going to do it. And so for me, the only way I stay inspired is like, oh, I want to color in DaVinci. And so that's just my workflow now.
And your sound design is through the roof.
It's next level.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will say, a big help has been the BFIGGY Essentials.
Thank God.
Link down in the description.
Link below.
Yes, Scott. Thanks.
If you haven't gotten the BFIGGY Essentials sound design pack, which is incredibly affordable.
Scott was with me when I was making it. I gave Scott the beta pack. Like he tested it for me and was like giving me feedback on what I should get. And yeah,
there's no better word than essential for this pack.
Thank you, dude. Thank you.
If you don't have it, you're missing out.
Okay, but
if you're a sports creator, you need to get it. How many more should I do?
One more would be great, and I'll slip you the 100 under the table after the pod. What do you think about the like? You know, let's just use a Lakers clip for example. Let's say LeBron breakaway dunk, hammer. Okay, how do you go about building out the dimension that it's going to live in down below? What do you start with? Because there's a million, and everyone has like downloaded you know, all these packs or whatever, right. And you've obviously have an amazing sound effect that's linked down below to pull from. And so
Absolutely.
how do we go about building out this landscape?
Practically does the work for you.
Yeah, it really, yeah. There's, you know, he has a plugin where you literally just type in the sound you want, and it just drops it on the timeline.
Just you type in LeBron.
Yeah, and the whole video is done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Next question, I guess. I think so. The very first thing I do is I right click and I add like 30 extra audio layers, because there's nothing worse than like trying to add another layer and like you have to like go to the bottom and then like whatever. So add a bunch of audio layers. You have this blank canvas.
I didn't even know you could do that. I thought to add another audio layer, you had to drag the audio clip down. I'm learning stuff every day, man.
Come on, man.
Thank God you have this podcast to learn from.
And this is why you tune in, folks.
Dude, I focus on photos. So.
Oh, that's fair. Checks out. You get a free
fucking
pass.
up music videos left and right over here.
Yeah. The music is noisy and doesn't have sound design. Jeez.
Yeah, dude. The music video doesn't need sound design. You know, it's just a song.
It's just one audio track.
Yes, that's fair. So I guess you really don't need much more than that.
It already comes with. Should I add some sports sound effects, like
some fucking diving?
Yeah, I noticed the mix is a little off. Is that a guy dunking in the background?
And crowd noise.
Did I get some floor squeaks? I think adding a bunch of open tracks is the first step, and then I don't know. Is there an example? Can I pull up an example?
Yeah, pull up an example.
Then I'll like walk you through how I built it out.
Oh yeah,
that's great.
You have it on your phone?
Well, I have I posted my
your timeline. Okay,
timelines on my IG.
This will be fun. We can throw up like the screen record.
Which you can follow me if you want to.
I love seeing one of my favorite things is seeing the video with the sound underneath it. Fires me up.
This edit I did for my website, and it was just visuals, but I liked all the shots that I had, so I had an idea to go in and do sound design on it. So I have this post of, it's the SFX breakdown for this video. So it's this post of the video on top and the timeline below. You swipe for only the NAT sounds, and then it shows only the SFX, the NAT sounds with the SFX, and then it's all of it together with no visuals. So my whole thing is like, how can I create an experience with just sound, right? Because it's really so important, and it really can elevate your videos. Your videos can look really amateur, but if you have really good sound, it can make it look extremely professional. So what do I start with?
And the opposite. If you have really like great looking video, but the sound is terrible, it's almost like impossible to watch because you're so distracted by how bad the sound sounds.
People underestimate like how much sound can influence you. And like, I know a lot of people watch videos on silent with, subtitles and whatnot, but you have to pretend like everyone's watching it with sound, because if you have a good visual and really bad sound, or just bad sound design in general, like it's just not going to look good or sound good or be a good experience for anyone. So I don't know. I guess with this video, I go through each clip and I think of what it sounded like in the moment and what it would sound like naturally. And I just this is the fun part for me, is I try to like mix sounds together to create a new sound almost. So like, if you're not using BFIGGY's Essential Sound Pack for a dunk, for me, like I've used different things. I've used a diving board sound with like springs, or and you combine that and you reverb it and you slow it down and reverse it, whatever, and you get kind of funky with how you want to create different sounds, and then you layer things. So a lot of my stuff is like, oh, that sounds cool, put it on the track. Adding another layer, oh, that sounds cool too, let me toss that underneath. And then like for this start of this video, it's like 3, 6, 9, I don't know, like there's like 15 layers here of different sounds, but it sounds like one or two different things.
Can I see?
So yeah.
And is it mainly, Scott, like whooshes, hits, risers? Is it atmospheric sounds, or what are you mainly pulling from for, say, this intro sequence?
Hits, risers, whooshes for sure. Those are 3 big things to pull from, and then it's just like.
Do you have those in?
Yes, we
the
have
sound effect.
Lots of them.
Nice.
But for this, it's like there's a boxer like taping his hands, and there's Mookie sliding into second base, so there's dirt, and then there's high fives that are happening and ropes. So it's like, what am I seeing in the videos, and how can I take that and amplify it? And the reason why I did the last slide of having SFX and natural sounds without a video is like, can you watch this and still know what's happening? And like, that's my goal, is to be able to listen to this and know, oh, like that's when like this guy's going up to bat, or that's when this guy's sliding into second, or that's when LeBron's dunking. So I think all of that plays, and that's like my test. Can I like close my eyes and listen to the edit and know what's going on in the video, and then I'll export it. Like until that point, like something's missing. So
how long does that process normally take? Is that the most time consuming thing that you do, or is it color?
And where does that live in the editing process?
Good question. I think color used to be one of the longer things for me, but I think that's sped up. Sound does take a while. I think the longest part is like structuring the video and pacing it out. I think that's what takes the longest. And then after that, it's probably sound and then color. Sound for me usually comes, if I'm working on a music track, it comes first. Or like after selects, I'll like find a music track and then I'll try to build off of the music track. If there's no music track, which I usually don't really have in my stuff, then it comes usually after everything.
Oh, you don't normally have a music track?
No.
I didn't even.
A lot of times I don't use.
That.
Yeah, because sometimes I do, and there's videos that have music for sure and less sound design. But for this video specifically, there's no music track,
just sound.
And I think I wanted to just try to like challenge myself of like, can I make this interesting without any like bed? So that usually comes after. So I'll like build out a timeline, a structure, and then once I have that set, I'll be like, okay, how can I make this sound cool, and how can I make this sound interesting? And so sound usually comes last for me in this, at least in this edit.
That's fun. You know, me and Braden were joking. You're kind of like Deion Sanders. I mean, you film 2 sports.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And at a high level.
At the highest level.
Yeah. Well, we just need to get you some shades. Swap those out with those mirrorless ones and you be set, dude.
It is impressive.
Thank you. I never really even
get you a cowboy hat. Call it a day, dude. You need to show up to the first Lakers game of this season with a fucking cowboy hat on and those sunglasses. I'll be like, I'll even bring the Ronin. I'll steal his Ronin for the day and I'll get you that 60 butter just cruising in through the fucking gates.
You need a hype video.
And we'll rent you a car too. We could get like a Maybach or something.
That's hilarious.
And then I get the vest to top it all off.
The vest will complete the fit.
Deion plus Uncrustables.
We'll get his number vest and we'll be set.
That's incredible. But so as someone who films like 2 sports, what would you say is the main difference between covering a baseball game and a basketball game?
Besides the length of the game.
The movement. I mean, baseball is so stationary.
God, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's like you can leave your sticks on your shot on sticks and like point at the batter for, it could be 2 minutes, for an at bat. I mean, yeah, sure, you're going to punch in and out, get different, frames for each pitch, but the tracking, it's a lot less, it's, a lot less dynamic. You're not having to follow too much. I mean, sometimes, yeah, you can track and try to like follow where the ball goes and whatnot, but for our purposes, we're mainly just staying on batter, or, we pick someone and try to stay on them basically. So it's very simplified. And then for basketball, obviously it's a lot more movement. There's guys running in and out of frames in front of you, behind them, back and forth, quick, fast breaks. So, and then you're focusing on different people at different times. So I think at first it was very overwhelming trying to figure out how to stay on top of it and how to film everything. But you kind of, you figure it out and just follow the ball. Yeah, that's the rule. You just stay on the ball. And then if you can do that, which makes it, that's easier than it sounds, but, it's once you learn how to understand the flow of the game, then it becomes a little bit more natural. But it's a big difference between filming baseball and basketball, and they both have their fun things and advantages and disadvantages. But it's hard to pass up filming a basketball game.
I've never filmed I haven't filmed baseball and never. I never did. I filmed softball, but with baseball specifically, basketball to me feels like a dance between us and them and trying to stay out of their way, but also get the shots. And we're obviously we're in a very close quarter environment. The baseline is so small and there's only very limited space for us to be, as well as the other reporters, the other camera people, the other photographers. With baseball, what do you feel like the dynamic is with the team? Because I noticed there's a lot less people that get to go where you guys are allowed to go. And at least in basketball, it feels like we're all together. Media's next to me, you got ESPN right next to you. But I felt like I saw, you guys were able to get into places that, besides the locker room, obviously, that like we both can go into. But, what is that like for baseball?
I will say one of the hardest parts about filming baseball and scariest is that foul balls come at you a lot. And so,
oh wow, I didn't even think about it.
So I try not to be too flinchy, but each pitch, I mean, you gotta be on it. Like, so there's a lot of times where I'm like filming and I'm, looking through my viewfinder, but then also like one eye is like on the batter, right? You really can't take your eye off of the ball in baseball because it'll come at you fast. And a lot of times the photo wells don't have nets or screens. And so it's just like you in the baseball world right in front of you. So that is something that's always, top of mind. I mean, yes, basketball, you have guys that are coming at you at 6'8" that are towering over you. I think you got slammed last year before.
God, it hurts so bad.
Play that video real quick. And it's like, that is scary for sure. But baseball is also terrifying. I had a ball that line drive drilled my tripod the other day. I had a bat that almost hit my head. I mean, there's like things that come at you really quickly.
Really got to be paying attention.
You do. So like it might, lull you to sleep sometimes, but you got to be on it. So it's scary, but yeah, I mean, the differences between basketball and baseball are pretty far apart, but they both are fun for different reasons.
What is the most favorite part of shooting basketball?
Pre-game. Pre-game is so fun.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Why is it so fun? Because the lighting. I love like I love making things look cool as much as I can. And with baseball, you're pretty limited. With basketball, it's like, it's almost like you're on a set. It feels like there's flamethrowers in the background. There's, lights going, lasers going, there's fog sometimes. And, there's so many things that you can do. And there's so many details you can get. One big thing I noticed is when I first started shooting basketball is that the guys don't care how close you get for the most part. You can get pretty damn close to these guys. And for the most part, they're going to be like, yeah, it's just another camera. Baseball, you get in the wrong guy's face at the wrong time, you are gone for life. Like they're weird like that. It's just different.
Different sport, totally different sport.
Exactly. Like
much more superstitious sport.
Very superstitious.
Yeah.
So if you say the wrong thing to a baseball player at the wrong time, or you point the camera at them when you shouldn't be, it's like you get dirty looks. You get, it's like a big no-no. It's like unwritten rules, right? So basketball, you walk into the court, you walk on, onto the court into the arena, and like one of my first shots was like AD, and his nose was like touching my camera, and I was like, this is insane. It's just crazy how close you can get to these guys, and that's just part of the game for them. It's just what they do, and they just know that they're around. So that's really cool. And then getting a chance to film like pregame with all the lights and trying out different things, and like putting on a prime and orbiting a guy, or racking from stands to, there's just so many different things you can do with the different lighting setups that happen during pregame. It's just it's fun.
Yeah, I never even thought of that, because there's so many of us around them 24/7 with cameras, and the team is much smaller with basketball. You know what I mean? There's only 15 dudes, 14 dudes, or whatever. And with baseball, you have this huge, massive team, and the cameras aren't around them 24/7.
No,
it's also like less flashy of a sport. Absolutely,
it's not part of the culture really of a baseball.
Like the fits, the walk-ins, all that stuff.
NFL, NBA, like that's like what it is. They know it's like part of the culture of like, social media and branding yourself and building out this, kind of social culture for themselves. Whereas baseball, a lot of baseball players like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care at all. I'm here to play my game and then get out. I don't need a camera around. I don't need any of that stuff. So it's very different. It actually feels like a culture shock going from baseball to basketball and then back to baseball sometimes. You end the basketball season, you go to spring training, you're like, got to put on a different hat. You got to be, a whole different mindset. Same thing. Like you end playoffs and you go into basketball. It's like, all right, I got to change gears here, because like I can do things differently here.
What is the biggest mindset shift from flip-flopping back and forth?
I don't know. I don't know if this is a good answer, but just like not being as timid, I guess. Like, I think maybe it's just me, but I overthink a lot within baseball. I try to be very respectful, and should I shoot this at right now, or should I put my camera at this guy, or what will he think if I do this? Because also too, we're in a unique spot because we know them personally. And so that can ruin a relationship, because we have to ask them for a lot of things throughout the year. And so if like we point a camera at someone after they go for 4 or striking out 4 times, and they're like, why the fuck is Scott filming me right now? They remember these kinds of things as much as you don't want to think they do. Like, and not everyone does, and not everyone will really care, but these are some things you kind of have to think about at some point, because they could come back and bite you in the ass. So we're kind of in a different spot with what we do and how we tell stories. So you just got to be careful with that. But I guess with the mindset, just like, not being as timid, I guess.
It also helps that you're prime time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Dion.
Yeah. Why? Dion's not timid. You know what I'm saying? It's prime time,
he's telling his takes, baby.
Maybe I should just pull up with some shades on.
I think you should. Scott, what advice would you give to someone that's younger wanting to get into shooting sports?
How young?
I mean, just someone that maybe isn't shooting professionally that wants to get to the highest level of sports.
It's also interesting because you guys both shoot the same team, but in a different way. You work for Spectrum. Braden works directly for the Lakers. I feel like there's different ways to get into shooting sports.
Yeah, it doesn't have to just be with the team.
Absolutely. That's a good question. Can I ask you what your advice would be?
Yeah, sure. I think my advice would be to get access to whatever you possibly can, whether it's high school or your little brother's 6th grade, flag football team, because anytime you get behind the camera is great, and then slowly try to waddle your way up that ladder and get to high school and get a credential there, and then maybe a smaller D2 college that actually needs, shooters. Because if you were thinking, Ohio State doesn't need shooters, but the small school in Ohio needs help big time, and so thinking about where you can provide the most value, and you have to be very honest with yourself, I think, of like where you can actually help, because it's definitely not at a really more prestigious school than Washington, Oregon. They don't need help, but UW could need some serious help, right?
But not from you, so it's different. They pick the right people, so it's different. So as long as you're not like Braden, then it's really not a problem. I guess that's my advice, is just don't be like Braden, and then you can probably get your foot in the door anyway.
It's funny because that's how I try to live my life every day.
I have a sign. Aspects. We talked about this sign. There's a sign that I have. It's just, what would Braden do? And then I just do the opposite.
Yeah.
So that's really it.
Dude, thank you for coming on the podcast.
No, but in all seriousness, I do get that question sometimes, and I think my answer is pretty similar, is go to your high school, middle school, whatever it is, find some kind of sport you can get access to, community college down the road, and film for them, because what I say is, like, you can get more access to them than I could ever get with the Dodgers. And that is a huge benefit for you. And you can make it look however you want. You are the full creative director in that mode. You can choose how to film things, how to light things, what stories to tell, how to tell them. So I think, like, taking advantage, don't see like shooting at high school or college as a downside or as something that's negative or not good enough, not prestigious enough, because you have full control. And I've seen quite a few creators who shoot for high schools and small colleges where I'm like, their stuff is better than mine. And it's impressive. And you can do a lot of stuff. I think it's less about who you're filming and more about how you're filming it, right? And so you can, it's like fun to like have those people in front of you and the talent in front of you of the guys that we're working with. But I do think, like, if you approach it in a way of pushing the creative limits and telling stories that you want to tell, then you might even be in a better position as far as like putting yourself in a good spot to get a really good gig,
I would also maybe advise someone to, yes, kind of push the limits and see how creative you can get, but make sure that your stuff is on brand with the team that you'd want to work for. If you're shooting a high school basketball game, look at what the Lakers are producing and try to make a piece that resembles something that the Lakers would actually put out themselves.
Yeah, I feel like if the internship came around next summer and someone was like, this is what I did for a game, I did exactly what you guys would do, we'd be like, holy shit, like what? Because that just doesn't happen. You're just not seeing that. Or something.
Taking it a step further and being like, this is what the Lakers could be doing in their games.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, you can still stay creative in that realm. And I think, like, I do really firmly believe that, like, what you post is kind of what you will attract, and what you share, that style that you have, is what you'll kind of attract as far as clients and brands go. And so, not being scared to mimic different ideas, but also thinking ahead of, like, what could the Lakers do, and what could they implement into their workflow that would make things even better? What jersey, reveal could they be doing that's different, or ideas that you're not really seeing a ton from these brands that they could be implementing. So I think, like, not being scared to be creative and going outside of the mold of what you see these brands doing too. I think that's important.
What in these next 6 to 12 months do you hope to improve on the most in your own work?
At some point, I want to get more into, like, the commercial world. So I think for me, it's like, how can I work on, like, different sets and lighting things? I think that'd be something I really want to grow in, and then also continue to work on storytelling, because that's always going to be there. That's always going to be the main focus for brands and creators, is the story and how you can tell it. And so storytelling, but also, like, making things look cooler. I think I'm always on the journey of, like, how can I make this look better, look more interesting, look cooler? I think that's, like, my continuous journey that I'm on.
Is there a specific shot you want to get this year?
Yeah, you sports, like a bucket list
you
shot
haven't got?
I don't know. Do you have one? Do you have a bucket list, shot list?
We both should make it, because what's crazy is after you've shot the same thing so many times, we've talked about it, like, oh, you become numb to it or whatever. You start looking at it from a different perspective. But I think about the actual game itself, and I just want, this year specifically, I do not want to miss any highlights. And I always look back, and I think like a few years ago when we had Russ had that dunk on Rudy Gobert, and I was editing a clip. It was sick. It was great timing. Editing a clip during the play, and then I go to zoom in, fucking out of focus. Great, missed the whole thing. And so this year I want to look back at all of the shots and say, one, I was locked in focus on everything, which is like literally impossible. But if I set that standard for myself, I hope that I go absolutely above and beyond of what I did last year and just try to make it 10 times as good, which isn't possible, but like it's a fun thing for me to play in my head to try to get as good as I possibly can. And B, I hope that when you watch the mini movies that we make, that you're very inspired. That's what I'd hope for the year.
Lock in focuses.
It's so fucking hard. It's so hard. It gets me so excited though. The thought of like when you get one absolutely perfect, zoomed all the way in, it's like the best feeling ever.
Yeah, it really, it's like squaring up a ball in baseball, or like when you're playing golf, whatever it is. It's like, it is, you want to show it to everyone.
Oh, you're like, look at that ball. It's in focus. You know how hard that is to get that ball in focus?
That? I'm in 1-4. You see how crazy that is? You see that? Like, no, I don't care, man. Yeah. Well, I care. No, that's a great goal. And that's funny because like we care about highlights because we show a lot of game footage, but like that's never front of mind for me. It's usually like, how can I best tell the story and what shots do we need to tell the story? And a lot of times it's like audio based or interview based, but I do like visually telling cool. I just want to shoot really creative stuff around LeBron while he's still around. And I don't necessarily know what that looks like, but maybe just trying it. We have a f/55 and we shoot on we don't do it often, but there's a 50 to 1000 lens that we have.
Fujinon?
Yeah.
Canon?
Might be Canon. I think it's Canon. And I think we used to shoot with that exclusively in that slash spot. And we've kind of stopped doing that because we have the 1-4 and it's just like easier to set up. But that lens can get some really cool stuff. I'm thinking like sweat dripping off in slow-mo of like tights of like eyes and stuff like that. I just think shots that you don't see on the broadcast is kind of what I aim for.
No, totally.
Things that you don't see on the broadcast that like that you don't usually see. So whether that's a different angle, different perspective, I think different frame rate. I don't think I have a specific shot, but I think when I do get it, I'll make sure to show you.
I'll let you know too, because I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I don't know what the shot it is, and I need to think about that because I want something to. Yeah, I want like a Super Bowl shot in my head to look forward to and to try to push me to be better.
Yeah.
It's exciting times. This is a series called Stalk Talk where we go back to, your IG, we scroll all the way down and we find something to talk about. And this is the first time I've ever done this. I screenshotted a period of time because you used to shoot a lot of portraits and I wanted to know, why did you shoot so many portraits back in the day? And then I feel like it just switched. It switched to sports immediately, kind of after this little period of time.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to do a ton of portraits. And I think it was a time where that was around the time where I just got my camera and like I'd had it for maybe a year and I didn't know what to shoot.
Did you shoot any flowers?
I should have.
You didn't shoot any flowers? I feel like we all shoot some flowers.
We have a joke that like
everyone shoots flowers.
Everybody shoots flowers at the beginning.
You walk out and you go shoot some flowers, like a ton of them.
Get some bokeh?
Shit, I missed that.
You didn't get that text. He was on that group chat. It's all right. It happens. We'll blame Ed.
Yeah, it's Ed's fault for sure.
Yeah.
He never told me to.
Yeah,
so like, I just did what he did.
Yeah,
so it's different.
Ed told us he shot flowers.
Yeah,
he shot flowers.
He just lied to you.
Anyway, we digress. I went through and I think I was just excited to go shoot stuff with friends. And so I was like, what can I do that looks cool? And I think for a period of time that was kind of correlated with like weddings in a sense of like getting around people and practicing like posing because I like always had a really hard time with posing couples and weddings and whatnot. So I was like, great way to practice like different poses with people and working with different types of people. It helped give me a subject to work with instead of just going out into nature and shooting a tree or flowers like some do. But I think like it was a great period for me to like work with people that I didn't have to pay, and even if they weren't paying me, it was great practice. And then I eventually like would do some like portrait sessions. So I was like able to make a little bit of money with doing portraits, but it was just a fun thing to do with friends. I think at that time that I was doing those, it wasn't, I hadn't like really started fully like using my camera to my fullest extent. So it was more of just like, I'm just doing it for fun and creating things here and there, but I just like want to go create more things. So it was just a period of time where I wanted to keep learning my camera. And that's part of the time where I would go and dig on YouTube and find new tutorials on how to pose and how to edit. That was a big time where I learned how to find a color grade and how to work in Lightroom and edit with color. And so
big blue and orange guy.
Yeah. I mean,
let's go.
Yeah. Teal and orange or the faded film look back in the day.
Come on, dude.
Throwing like insane amounts of grain on things, just we all go through it.
Still do it.
You got a bad photo, throw some grain on it.
Or colors off, throw it in black
and white. Both grain and black and white.
Was that taken on a film camera?
Yeah, as far as you know.
All right, so we always finish the pod with one question, and it is advice to your 18-year-old self. If you could talk to yourself back in the day, what advice would you give?
Do you want me to actually talk to myself?
Yeah,
sure.
Feels kind of silly.
12-year-old Scott.
18-year-old Scott.
No, what advice would you give to 18-year-old Scott?
It's funny because at that time in my life, I just graduated high school, so I wouldn't have even picked up a camera until 4 years later. So, and I think at that time I was worried about making the right choice with college and what I would major in and all that kind of stuff. And I think what I'd tell myself is like, it's okay to go down the wrong path. It's okay to like not pick the right thing. I thought I was going to be a physician's assistant, and then I changed my major to psychology, and then I went into medical sales. It's like before I even really picked up a camera, I made all these decisions, after 18 that weren't even close to where I'm at right now. So I don't think that you have to have it all figured out. I would tell myself not to stress about having it all figured out. I think that's a big worry for a lot of young people is like, what if I'm wasting my time? What if I'm not doing it right? And I think like if you find that thing that you're passionate about and you just push yourself to learn more about it and stay curious, I think you'll get to where you want to go. And at that time at 18, like I could have never guessed this is where I would end up. And so just telling myself to like, yeah, it's okay to pick a path and then redirect. Pick something and change. It's okay to, and then once you get to that point, it's okay to take new leaps of faith and to try new things. It's funny because that's 11 years ago for me. So yeah, I'm an old man, but
you look good though.
Thanks. Yeah. I've just all the Botox, and
that's what happens when you move out here. It comes with it. They give you a Tesla and some Botox right when you move down.
Welcome to LA.
I mean, prime time's got to look on time,
I left my shades at home for you guys.
Dude. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to episode 82 of the 505 podcast. If you're still here, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Later.